Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And we are taking this opportunity now to kind of go back and because the event that we just held in downtown at the Grand Hyatt, our convention was such a packed schedule of events and activities. And, we didn't get everyone live that we wanted to get. And we're making up for that today, and to do that, I'm very pleased to welcome Mary Husway, who's vice president with Victor Insurance. And Victor is, as you might remember, if you were there with us in October of last year at Marco Island, Florida, Victor Insurance was the sponsor of the podcast booth, which was beautifully positioned right in front of some nice palm trees that were just too far away for me to reach, but beautiful nonetheless. And Victor is also an exhibitor and sponsor of the convention this year, and we really do appreciate, of course, your continued support as an organization for ACEC. And I hope that a lot of people were able to get down to your exhibit booth, but if they weren't, let's treat this kind of like a podcast exhibit booth visit to an extent. Mary, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
And it's great to have you. Your specialization is in our space, underwriting for architects, engineers, the AE community. Tell us a little bit about Victor and how you kind of set yourselves apart from the pack when it comes to supporting the industry.
Well, let's see. Victor is actually an underwriting manager for the CNA program. CNA would be the insurer, and Victor is we're an underwriting management firm, do nothing but underwrite. I personally have been an underwriter for Victor for 26 years, and I underwrite in the large firms for architects and engineers. We basically, I'm trying to think, when we first started, uh, architects and engineers, design firms had coverage for professional liability, but it was typically a vicarious policy through a contractor. And as things heated up in the 50s, more and more design firms were being pulled into claims for projects that they were doing with contractors. And they felt like they weren't being represented, that their needs were not being covered. So the architects and engineers actually came to, we used to be called Victor Oceaner. 3 years ago, we changed to Victor. But they came to a man whose name really was Victor Oceaner, and they said, we feel like we need to have our own policy. And so they sat down and put together a policy, and Victor approached CNA and said, would you be interested in offering coverage for this group? And they said, sure. So that was in 1957. And we have been continuing the relationship, providing professional liability for architects and engineers since 1957. Longevity,
Yeah.
I think, sets us apart. If you asked what set us
Yeah.
apart, and we're still,
You've gone through a lot.
yeah.
You've seen a lot of change,
I
a
was just
significant
going to
amount of change.
say, and we're still
Yeah.
here, and we continue to change and evolve as the industry does. We continue to address the needs of the insureds,
Mm-hmm.
and if a policy language needs to be changed to include a certain service that may not have been considered previously, then we
Mm-hmm.
definitely would take that into consideration. And in terms of supporting ACEC, we've been supporting ACEC for over 30 years. We have people that sit in on our the legal counsel forum. We also have folks that are represented in the risk management committee,
Mm-hmm.
along with attending both the national convention and the fall convention every year.
Yeah.
And then we also sponsor events within the convention. As you mentioned, we sponsored the podcast booth in the
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah. A lot there. I mean, you're very active with ACEC as an organization, and we always do appreciate that. I can't help but think. I mean, starting in the '50s, and over 50 years, easily. I mean, 60 plus of years of experience. For some reason, my mind is still stuck in the 2000s, and I keep on forgetting we're in the 2020s now. Is you know a lot has changed. I mean, what we're looking at for engineers and what they're demanded, to do, and the work that they're doing, and how they're really leveraging technology. I mean, it's a different industry than it was before. Looking at where things are right now, I mean, it's a changing environment that we're in right now. What's really been the landmark change in your mind in terms of what engineering firms are coming saying, this is really our exposure, and this is what we really need to look for coverage. I mean, what's been the biggest thing in your mind that's really swept across the industry?
I think if I were to look back and you mentioned technology, one thing that comes to mind, and it was in the 20s, in the 2000s, we actually sponsored with ACEC one of the first national seminars on BIM. Um, this BIM is a modeling. It's a model that's interactive, and the people just didn't know what it was, or how do we approach this, and we sort of took the mystery out of it. So those are the kinds of things that we look at. We look at what's going on right now. Some of the big buzzwords are, in terms of providing coverage for, everybody's looking at green, everybody's looking at approaches for a better way to treat the earth. These are things that are big. They're big up on Capitol Hill, and they've been addressed. We're looking at some of the funding that's coming out of various laws that are being approved, and what types of projects does that funding apply to. And even that kind of information is more up to date. I think one of the beautiful things is that we're located right here in Bethesda, Maryland, which is right by the Capitol, and we we do have a close hand on the pulse of what's going on. And as we come out of a pandemic and people are looking to see where this funding is going to go, it's a different approach that people are taking, and we like to at least stay ahead of the game and try to find out even about environmental projects, and how to have clean air kind of projects. And right now too, we're looking at P3 projects and how do you approach those. A lot of the larger infrastructure projects are P3 projects. And so these are things that not only come to mind, but you have to get your arms around what they are, and what's going on with them. So we like to exchange ideas with ACEC and vice versa. Sometimes they'll come to us and just say, do you guys have any information on green building? And we'll say, you know what? We just wrote a white paper. Here you go. And we have, as part of the underwriting management firm, we have our own risk management team, and that's all they do. They do contract reviews, and they'll go out and do in-house seminars for people. They do webinars, and they stay on top of things. We have a blog. It's a whole separate department. So
Hmm.
that's one of the beauties of
Yeah.
having an underwriting management firm.
I think the point that you raised about how things are changing, and you're right. I mean, I think in leading up until almost the to 2010, there's this explosion of technology that had been developing over time. BIM is a perfect example of that, and the way that project delivery happens. It's the use of this one for one interactive virtual model of a project, which gets down to the individual bolt, and knowing where it is, and knowing that in the real world that bolt exists exactly where it is on that digital model. A lot of questions around that of how, that's you have information security issues, you have data privacy and protection issues, and then of course, so you have exposure to risk and liability. That's a significant thing. But then it kind of evolved, and now we're in this time of sustainability, ESG, environment, and it's evaluating what firms are doing. To your point, making an air, how are you going to make the air cleaner? How are you going to treat the environment? How are you actually going to approach this project so that you actually leave very little impact uh, as a result of your design?
Right.
And that seems to be really driving us forward now as a society in general. And I imagine that's becoming a big focus of your work.
It definitely is, and people say, well, we can deal with this green gas issue by having everybody drive electric cars. Well, that's fine, but how are you going to deal with that? You can't just all go out and buy electric cars without preparing for it. I know myself, if you're driving up 95 and you pull over to a rest area to get gas, there actually are electric car places that they can recharge and get ready. Even the easy pass lanes now, you don't even go through. They just click you as you drive by, so you're not you're not stopping for that. But that kind of innovation and that kind of forward thinking is really what's at the forefront for everybody these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So at convention at the booth, what were you your big promotional item? What were you trying to educate people about, Victor, at the event?
Well, interestingly enough, since we've been doing it for over 30 years, a lot of people know us. And it to me that is the the biggest reason for sponsoring is to just show that we are not only interested in providing insurance for them, but that we're interested in their issues and we want to be a part of it. It gives us an opportunity to speak with our firms outside of the whether it's a renewal meeting or it just gives us a chance to really get to know each other. And because we also participate in the legal counsel forum and the risk management committee, it it shows our expertise. And people come to us and they're very familiar with the fact that we're very forward thinking and always looking to see what's the next thing that we can cover. So quite honestly, they come to us for our opinion and ask if we know of anything, what's going on, how are things going, what are some of the newest claims that are coming in. As the courts reopen after COVID, the courts were closed for a long time. So now they're reopening and claims are being addressed, but some of them are a couple of years old. And so we look at how they're being handled. It's You look at supply and demand, you look at what's driving claims these days. Uh, there could be delays in extras because of supply and demand.
Yeah,
Stuff is out in container ships out in the middle of the ocean. Um,
yeah, that's true.
it's a very different world. Things are more expensive, they're not readily available. So there's a lot of different changes, a lot, and depending on where you are in the country, there's what's everybody seeing.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. I mean it's we're back, we're to an extent. I mean, the pandemic, for all intents and purposes, is essentially over. We're still dealing with the remnants of COVID. It's not gone by any means, but it's a different world that we're living in right now. And the whatever was in place in 2019 needs to be closely looked at in 2022 to see if it still is up to snuff.
That's for sure.
And yeah, because it's just the way we operate internally as a firm. If the way that your firm operates and runs its own business, and then how you're doing the work for the end client. There are all these new dynamics that are put in play right now, where it's just not just the quality of the work or how it's performed, but it's the methodology by which you're you're keeping people safe, and that you're adapting to this post-COVID reality that we live in now.
True,
Um,
true. And quite honestly, we had four of our experts from large firms at our booth, and also participating in various forums throughout the
mhm.
conference. But people see, in my eyes, people see a comfort because they know us. And
Yeah.
they're like, you guys are still there. And it's a feeling that is a secure kind of thing for everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, it
Um,
makes sense.
it really does. It really does. So when people swing by, we're not really selling anything. We're having conversations, and the conversations can be about how's everything going, or it can be about what have you heard? What's going on in the
Yeah.
industry? So that's really what our goal
Yeah.
is.
I mean, having that, being able to come to an event like the convention and just reestablish those personal relationships in the same room now is critically important.
All right.
And like you said, it's continuing those and build, established relationships, nurturing those, and then building new ones. And it's just it's a good location for it because this is what everybody's kind of looking for when they go to these events. Um, where I know you have victorinsurance.com, of course, is the website for Victor Insurance. Anywhere else that people should go to try to learn more about the company and kind of where they could possibly fit with your services.
Well, our website actually shows all of the Victor programs, and there,
Mhm.
if you get into the risk management side of it, the architects and engineers, you dig down a little deeper, and there's risk management.
Yep.
There's a blog there, the webinars are there. Whether they see the webinar in person or if they want
Hmm.
to stream it after it's already
Yeah.
run, that's something that's available. uh, there's white papers there. We have a school of risk management that has over 60 courses in it right now, and they provide continuing ed classes. So those are some of the things. I know some of the every state has an ethics requirement. There's ethics courses on there. Really, the website is going to be where you begin, and when you
Hmm.
open your eyes and see what's there, it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. There's risk
Yeah.
management
Having that
advisories for everything.
having that thought leadership ability, and having that long length of time being involved in this and having that deep bench of experience is critically important for member firms. And would really encourage everyone to take a look at victorinsurance.com and you know I know, Mary, you deal with the large firms, but of course there are people on your team who deal with all varying sizes of firms and their insurance needs, and would really recommend you checking Victor out because it's they know what you need. They know the industry. They aren't writing looking at everything under the sun and writing assistance and policies for people who are outside of the industry. This is kind of the sweet spot for them. So it's a great group, and I do hope to see you again this fall in Colorado.
We certainly intend to be there. There's no question.
Great, wonderful. Well, Mary, I do appreciate the time you've taken. I'm sorry we couldn't get to you there at the event. Um, the exhibit hall was crowded. It was very packed in space. So
Yes, it
I'm glad we could
was.
do it. Yeah, I'm glad we could do it when it gets a little less crazy and you can actually concentrate. But we do appreciate your time today.
Great. Well, thanks very much for having us.
Yes, wonderful. And again, that has been Mary Husway. She is vice president with Victor Insurance, victorinsurance.com, a long-standing supporter of ACEC and our member firms. And this has been Engineering Influence, a podcast for the American Council of Engineering Companies. We'll see you next time.